as if from the dead.
Yes!
Been 2 weeks out.
We've revised what we've done so far, and we've come back with a completely new model, haven't we?
That being said, I do have a story for that actually. So I was listening back to a couple of the podcasts because I am the person who deals with all of the technical aspects.
/ the only person that actually listens to it.
Yeah, all those listens on SoundCloud is just me going, why can't more people listen to it?
All those 47 listens.
So I ended up listening to the podcast just to kind of gauge how we were doing. Not necessarily with the content. Obviously, the content is premium.
Yeah.
However, the sound quality, because I am the person who deals with all of that aspect of the podcast, I wanted to listen back to it and see how could we improve.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the tube listening to it on my headphones.
Yeah.
And
you just see a silhouette of you from another side of the tram just going, what the fuck is this?
No, so I was listening to it, and we made quite a good funny at one point, which made me giggle. However, what I didn't realise is, you know, when you've got the 1,000-yard stare and you're kind of looking at the person opposite you, but not necessarily looking at them, kind of looking through them.
Whilst glazing over your own nose.
While smiling a wry, weird smile
Yeah.
at this young child.
Me? Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about us in this.
No, at this young child opposite me with their parent.
Yeah.
And I had to run the risk. I was like, do I tell them that I'm laughing at my own jokes?
Yeah.
Or do I tell them that I want to fuck the kid?
What was it?
I can't remember. It was something good, but I shouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
Not in public. Listening to our podcast is akin to masturbation.
Yeah, he just laughs.
Just not in public.
The mother just looks up at you, looks down at her beloved, looks back at you, you're smiling, and you go, and just you take your earphones out and you go, I just made a joke about kiddie fiddling. Sorry. This is your moment to shine, Matt. This is your reminder.
Oh, yeah. So I realised the last couple of podcasts we haven't actually introduced ourselves. So welcome back, everyone. This is the Endeavours podcast, a podcast all about heavy metal. My name is Matthew, and with me as always is my co-host. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Tom Watson.
How is it always as always?
Why
does it always have to be me? Why does it always have to be me?
So have you been up to much?
Well,
what
haven't we been up to? I've been breathing in, breathing out, and remembering to breathe in again. We've both been to...
Waking up in the morning and going, fuck, I'm not dead.
Yeah. Is this everything I have? We've both been to Desert Fest. We've both been to Incineration Fest. We've got the first-hand report. You didn't get backstage passes, but we got backstage passes.
Do you want to tell everyone what we were actually doing?
Fucking looking at people on Instagram going to Desert Fest and Incineration Fest, which I have on good accord. Again, good accord being Instagram, that it went relatively well.
As well as Incineration Fest could go, I guess.
Yeah, as well as it could go when you've got Carpathian Forest and Winterfilleth on the lineup. I do like Winterfilleth. It's one of those things. Definitely not going into it now, but it's one of those things where
the
really
black
do
metal
have
scene in general is an absolute minefield.
Yeah, it's very sketchy. You have to investigate something, even if you like it at first glance.
I just barrel in.
So laborious. You then have to really investigate everyone involved in the band.
I just commit. I just barrel in now. I'm just listening to the Satanic War Master.
Well, that's kind of I do that. That's the thing. I fucking love Satanic War Master. But you really do have to separate the art from the artist when it comes to black metal, probably more so than any other genre, other than if there was a genre called Nazism. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really have to look into stuff.
Can the same be said for the other side? Can you disassociate? Can you disassociate a band who are decidedly left wing and say, well, it's not about the music, is it?
Well, no, because that's within my echo chamber.
Oh,
isn't
okay.
it? Like,
So
I
as long
can-
as it serves you, you're
Yeah.
all right with it then.
Yeah, totally. Like if anything has land as in the album title as
Okay,
a
yeah.
suffix,
Yeah.
I'm already a little bit skeptical. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so yeah, we haven't really been doing much. We've been away doing our own things. We haven't really been communicating with each other that much.
Just passive aggressive text.
From fucking you. And then yeah, I've been absolutely exhausted at the moment. Like absolutely exhausted. My neighbour who lives upstairs from me, Jesus, this motherfucker. Like he's either a secret gamer, like nocturnal gamer at about 3 a.m.
It's a shameful practice. So.
or he just blasts out videos on YouTube of like fucking Hiroshima, like nuclear bombs or something. Because I want to like knock on the door at like 3:30 a.m. and just be like, "Excuse me, can you just stop playing Call of Duty?" And he's like, "No, I'm just watching explosions." on YouTube."
Just
oh,
continuously
Can
on
I come
YouTube.
in? Tom, where are you? That's my girlfriend, by the way. That's
was
not
a
my
great
inner
impression.
psyche. That's not my subconscious trying to
Where
find
are
me.
you? Cool. So should we get stuck in?
Yeah, let's get it.
There's
out
been
of
a
the
lot
way.
happening.
There has been a lot happening. There's been Desert Fest.
Yeah.
There's been Incineration Fest.
If anything, I feel that we might have missed a few things, but I've only got one news piece, so I tried to whittle it down. But I feel like this is a worthwhile news piece. But do you
I
wanna
don't
go
think
first?
anyone should. I don't think anyone should perceive us as some kind
Oh
of
wait,
news
you
feed.
fucking hear that?
Yeah, what is that?
So speaking of neighbours,
What is that?
so speaking of neighbours, our next door neighbour installed a boiler that whenever he turns on the hot tap, it creates this loud ringing noise, which you'll be able to hear now.
Yep.
And that outside, when we go out into the garden, is fucking mind-bogglingly loud.
Really?
Yeah. And we called him out on it, and he was like, I was just hoping no one was going to notice.
I can imagine
Yeah,
a bunch of fucking dire wolves like arching their head around going, "Oh!"
So,
It's first Game of Thrones
fuck
reference
everyone.
of the
That's why
season.
we're gonna move into the woods eventually and have a log cabin just for podcasting.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I would absolutely love to actually have a studio
That would be
space
great.
for this,
Yeah.
rather than coming around here. I do like coming
Thanks.
around here. It just means that we'd both be a little bit more professional with it.
Well, do they have dark arts coffee in the mountainous regions?
What of Leighton? Yeah. Dark Arts Coffee.
Man,
is
you probably get
absolutely everywhere.
stabbed there anyway as well. So.
Yeah, again. Rick Rubin, the infamous producer, label founder of Def Jam. Rick Rubin has confirmed that Slayer are inventors of black metal.
Okay.
So, okay, yeah, right.
Here we go.
Okay, yeah. So, in a recent podcast interview with Malcolm Gladwell, Def Jam founder and producer Rick Rubin confirmed that thrash doyens, Slayer, were one of the inventors of black metal. He said, something I noticed relatively early in working with different artists that was interesting was that one of the bands I work with is called Slayer, heavy metal band. One of the inventors,
Thank you for
if that was a
clarifying that.
revelation. So one of the things I noticed is that they were called Slayer. One of the inventors of black metal, very aggressive metal, and the lyrics were very dark and heavy. To some people, they would look at that as a negative content. And then I would go to a concert and see the arena full of kids who were very much like the guys in Slayer, who were so filled with joy listening to this music. It was speaking directly to them. It completely was nourishing them. Kumbaya would not have reached them.
It's not like they have to like reinstate their relevance by claiming this. Like everyone's still like Slayer, and they're coming to the end of their career anyway. Is this beneficial to Slayer, or is this beneficial to Rick Rubin? Has he got something coming up on his docket that
I
leads him to
think-
believe that he's doing a new like metal record and he
Yeah.
wants to?
Yeah. From what I've witnessed, he's he's a very SoCal, no shoes or slippers kind of dude. You know, slippers, no shoes or any socks whatsoever. He doesn't have that much to say for himself, I think, in interviews. So he basically just blags his way through talking about stuff, and then a clanger like this suddenly comes out. And everyone's like, can you just justify what you're talking about there?
You know who's the real victim in this? It's poor Kronos from Venom.
Yeah,
He spent so long trying to convince everyone that he did actually invent black metal. And then a bunch of fucking dweebs from Norway come along and they claim it. And now Slayer's claiming it. And poor Conrad, he's sat there just going, what is my life? Sitting in Newcastle.
I mean, I've got a fucking album title called it. It is a bit strange. Like, I don't know where like the aesthetic of Slayer.
Yeah, because it's not just the music. It is a culmination of everything that surrounds, like, lyrical themes, aesthetic, the actual music itself, funnily enough, because that needs to be part of this. Yeah. So, I have to ask you a question. Are you a fan of the films?
No.
The Terminator?
Oh, I absolutely love them, yeah.
Yeah, all of them?
All of them, wait. I would say the first narrative arc.
Okay.
And the first closure of Terminator.
Are you a fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
So if you enjoy all those films, then chances are you're willing to welcome your new robotic overlords in the same way that I am. Because
Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic. Did you see that?
Yeah, man. That was an amazing marketing ploy by like changing.
I think they had that
overnight.
They had the plan on doing that.
100%. Very clever. Yeah. But also, I was constantly thinking throughout the initial marketing run, like, who is this demographic? Like, who are they trying to appeal
That's
to?
what I was like. It's like anyone who's of the age that this is geared to doesn't know who Sonic is.
Yeah.
Like, I know who Sonic is.
They had Sonic Mania came out last year, I think, which was like the first good Sonic game that came out in decades. And I was thinking, like, if this is for the old heads, the old Sonic heads, the old Mega Drivers, like, they're not really going to want to go see a film that's aimed towards kids, and there's not really going to be that many sort of in-joke references because there's no like fucking Emerald Garden, whatever. Oh, God,
do you think they can? Do you think they can redesign Jim Carrey?
I don't think they need to. No, I think he's going to smash it.
Fucking terrible.
I think he's going to do well. No. I think Jim Carrey will do all right. No. But I don't think Sonic. I think they need to recast Sonic.
That child in a bag joke actually did make me laugh out loud.
There we go. Yeah. Also, was he originally wearing Pumas on his feet?
They were like red with... No, they were like Adidas, weren't
Which
they?
means that he purports the death of gay men.
What?
Puma is... like, I think linked into that whole what's the hotel chain that's been in the news recently?
I know that the guy owns the one in Mayfair.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called though. Dudabot's an artificial intelligence software that was developed by Berklee College of Music graduates Zach Sikowski and CJ Carr, have developed a means of creating AI-based death metal. So this is a stream which uses artificial intelligence system called Neural Network, has been running 24/7 since the 24th of March. In that time has been continuously creating new music in a death metal style without any human input except feeding existing death metal into the neural network. The network spots patterns in the music to identify the characteristic features of the genre and then recreates those features to create the new music.
What does that mean?
So essentially they get a bunch of death metal, play it to this AI that's just sitting there going, oh, come on, and then craps out this artificially made... I don't even know how to describe it. Have you had a chance to listen to it? Because this has been quite well publicised.
No, I haven't.
It was like through Vice. So it's a stream that is just continuously going, like it does not stop, and it sounds awful. So after several failed attempts at creating stable, listenable death metal, the creators turned to the music of a band called Archspire, which ended up being the perfect template to generate music tunes via artificial intelligence. I haven't had a chance to listen to Archspire.
Right.
But Sokowski explains the remarkable part is the high quality to shit ratio. We tried this with 100 albums and found that Archspire's music made for the most interesting bot. Zero curation was necessary. Everything it generates sounded good to us. You're hearing everything it makes. Our theory is the faster the blast beats, the more stable the net. Archspire is absurdly fast. They're basically machines. So far, we haven't found anything that works better.
Anything?
No. Not at all.
Wow. So basically, they got a robot to just shit out an AI version of Risk by Megadeth.
Yeah, pretty much. But however, Archspire have found out about this, and Archspire adds, we've been hearing about this AI that's trained on Archspire writing death metal over the past few weeks. Well, here's the thing. We aren't actually surprised about this. We've been utilising similar technology to write our music this entire time. The program we've been used is called Tobi, T-O-B-I. It stands for Technically Outrageous Boner Inducing. Toby has been part of our writing process since 2009, and while you may notice that he takes on the physical form as a guitarist in the band, rest assured under those tight-fitting clothes, he's more man than machine. His name should be Chad, really, shouldn't it? Something.
Yeah. Totally outrageous bullshit invention.
I mean, it's not particularly... Out of everything that I've seen that artificial intelligence is capable of, this is not...
I mean,
I've worthwhile endeavour.
I've seen little robots dab. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to go up your nose, Matt?
I choked on my dark arts. He's trying to kill me.
Okay, moving on from there. Unfortunately, Matt, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, and I don't want you to start crying, Dark Arts Coffee, but there doesn't seem to be any reconciliation for original Morbid Angel lineup anytime soon.
Okay.
So former Morbid Angel frontman David Vincent, he's got his own project, I Am Morbid. So the group's current lineup is completed by former Morbid Angel drummer Tim Young, plus guitarist Bill Hudson, who's been in a couple of average bands, and then Kelly McLaughlin. So David Vincent, in an interview recently, spoke about I Am Morbid and his right to play Morbid Angel songs, but also his relationship with the original Morbid Angel lineup. So the thing that really aggravates me whenever bands talk about original lineups and how they're probably not going to be able to get back together, sort out their differences, they always compare it to a marriage, and they always compare the materials to children. Every
not
time.
CD collections then. Something that would probably be a better metaphor.
Exactly, it would. Yeah, I mean, at least it wouldn't be so personal or melodramatic.
Yeah.
But it's always about a relationship and about a divorce. So Vincent told, I think it's Jorge Botas of the Metal Global Radio Show, which is like a Portuguese show. He said, "Times come and life works the way that it does. And there are times when it's like a marriage. Sometimes they don't always work forever. But that doesn't mean that the children that we've had together, that I still don't love my children. Although Trey, the way how you say his surname is, because there's been a lot of deliberation of how you pronounce his surname.
You could just ask him.
100% Azegtoth. Azegtoth. Like that.
What was that last syllable?
Because it's Azegtoth. Trey, Azegtoth, bro. But a lot of people think it's like Azagthoth or something.
Oh, okay.
But it's Trey Azegtoth, which, I mean, he's a seminal guitarist. He's very, very important in the trajectory of death metal. And that is where the relationship kind of falters between Trey, who is Morbid Angel, essentially, and David Vincent, who is I Am Morbid. So yeah, although Trey and I have some irreconcilable differences, that doesn't in any way preclude me from still having the love and the passion for all of my children. So he basically goes on and on and on about how they're not going to get back together. I remember a few years ago, Trey Azagtoth's mum, when she heard about I Am Morbid, she then got in touch with David Vincent online through Facebook to say, David, what are you doing? Like, you know that Trey is the original member of Morbid Angel. Do you really
Got him on Tinder.
Yeah,
Swipe right.
Exactly, yeah. So, unfortunately, from this interview, there's been no reconciliation, and I don't think there's going to be any anytime soon.
Sorry, I don't think anyone's holding their breath, so it's all right.
I don't know.
Just let them battle it out.
Same thing for Amon Amarth, actually, at the moment. The drummer, Frederick Anderson.
Just released a new record, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, yeah. So the ex-drummer, Frederick Anderson, says they're getting kicked out the band was the best thing that ever happened to him.
That sounds very Alan Partridge.
It definitely does. So Anderson was fired from Amon Amarth in March 2015, just as the band were preparing to begin work on Yom's Viking. So Amon Amarth opted to enlist a session drummer, Tobias Gustafsson, during the recording sessions. So basically, in an interview with Australia's Wall of Sound, Anderson called out Amon Amarth singer Johan Hegg for allegedly spreading lies about him in interviews, and slammed his former bandmates for not giving him his full share when he was forced out of the group. So I dug into this a little bit because no one, especially from Amon Amarth, really alluded to exactly why Anderson was kicked out.
Okay.
So I did a little bit of digging, and this is what I found out. So they said that his behaviour wasn't right for the tour, and the band were sort of organically separating themselves from Anderson. I'm going to read this verbatim because it's mental. I don't know what year he said this, but obviously it was the time after he left Amon Amarth, so within the past 4 years. He said, on the last tour I did in Madrid, in the dressing room after the show, I was told I had to stop doing these stick tricks. I did them 2 to 3 times during the set, and I'll admit, they didn't always succeed. In fact,
he knows his limitations then.
In fact, probably most of the times, I didn't catch it. Well, they said I had to stop because they could get hit if it flew out to the front of the stage. Sometimes, but very rarely it did. I said, okay, really? But has it happened that you ever got hit? No, but it could happen. It would hurt, and we'd look stupid. Me again. But the odds of that happening is like really small. Well, you can keep doing it. Well, I mean, you can keep doing it. But if I get hit by one of your drumsticks, I'll come up and poke your eye out with it. That's when I realised I couldn't take any more of their shit. Sure, I can understand if it'd hurt if you'd get hit by one, but come on, boo fucking who? Man up. It's not like I was trying to hit them. I was just trying to do a cool show for the crowd.
I was just trying to do my tricks, bro.
So yeah, that's that.
That is spellbinding.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fuck Amon Amarth, anyway, they're shit.
I did listen to that new record, like once through and just went, nah.
It's not for me. It's not for me.
So that moves us swiftly on to our main topic for today.
Yeah.
Which was originally proposed by myself, and you seemed a little trepidatious when I initially...
Still am.
Oh, really?
Still am. No, it's good. I am looking forward to it. So it is a real beast.
Yeah. So we are trying to open up kind of, avenues that we can go down in terms of things that we're covering. And we thought maybe we might talk a little bit about the gear that's actually used in metal. And I think this is probably, if not, one of the most important pieces of gear that's ever, to the point in which it's so notorious.
Yeah, it's notorious. It's significant. I mean, it is important because I don't think you'll find as much content online, sort of source material for a very specific item than with this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you could look up the specs of clones of what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah,
but
we might get a little bit dry and sciencey, but don't worry, we'll throw some dick jokes in.
Yeah, don't worry.
Keep it light.
In fact, I'll give you an audio representation of what we're talking about now, and see if you can guess at home.
If you get that over my microphone, I'm going to be pissed.
No, I didn't. It's fine. It's fine.
So we're going to take we're going to be bouncing intercontinental today. We're going to be going from Japan to Sweden. So we thought we'd cover a piece of equipment which is called the Boss HM-2.
And it is the Boss.
It is the Boss.
Yeah.
So you familiar with this pedal originally? When I mentioned that we should do this, how much did you know going into it?
I knew of its existence. I knew that when I was originally learning how to play guitar, just a sort of a disclaimer, Matt and I both play guitar and we both play in bands. So
Poorly.
That's subjective, you know. I've got to be modest, but I've also, I must admit, I love my babies. I love my children. So Matt and
this
I...
This podcast is now your child.
Yeah, Matt and I...
Every single one.
Multiple
beautiful.
Relationships. We're cheating on each other with each other. So yeah, when I was first learning how to play guitar, this pedal did actually come up because it is... I think maybe because of the name and what it suggests, because it's not very subtle, is it?
No.
I was thinking I probably need that if I want to sound a certain way. So yeah, I was familiar with it. I never actually played with one though.
No?
No.
So I've played in a couple of bands, one of which took a lot of influence from that kind of Swedish death metal sound. So we were heavily into our Boss HM-2. And
Who
to
was
be
that?
honest, Black Mass on Holy Roll
Bloody
Records.
good band.
Yeah.
Bloody good.
Well, not until I got into them, but so for anyone who hasn't listened to it, it is not a particularly pleasant sounding piece of equipment, even for people who enjoy metal.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone who listens to metal will necessarily enjoy the particular strain of metal that this creates.
Yeah, 100%.
So a little bit about the history of it. So it's a Boss product, which is part of the Roland family. Boss was founded in around 1973 in Japan with the earliest product called the B100, the Boss, which was released in 1974.
Specifically for Bruce.
Yes, which was a clip-on preamp, which was used for amplifying acoustic guitars. So
Really?
maybe, who knows? Maybe he did use it. At some
Maybe he
point.
did.
It would be a shame if he did not.
I'll give him a bell afterwards.
But it wasn't until almost 10 years later that the actual pedal that we're covering came to fruition. So the HM-2, which stands for heavy metal, although it's called the HM-2, but I never found an HM-1.
It's a bit like Troll 2.
Yeah.
Like, there was no original. There was, but it had
they had
Troll
absolutely
2.
nothing to do. Yeah.
Which is quite funny because HM2 is like the Troll 2 of the pedal world.
It takes itself seriously and everyone's laughing.
It's like the best, worst pedal.
Yeah. So it was created it was launched in 1983. And this was all because Boss kind of wanted to capitalize on the success of the DS1, which was a distortion pedal that they'd made a couple of years earlier. And the initial idea of the Boss HM2 was to create this kind of Marshall full stack sound. At that point, a lot of heavier bands were coming into the fore and they were kind of looking to capitalize on that. However, unfortunately, I don't think that they really managed to actually encapsulate the sound of a Marshall full stack, because this sounds absolutely nothing like it. And given the limitations of the pedal, I don't see how they could have ever have gotten to that kind of sound.
Imagine the creator of it, like going to boss and being like, "It's finished."
Well, yeah. So I mean, the lifespan of the pedal was pretty short, and the reason for it being discontinued is because the sales weren't particularly great, and no one can really tell why. Well, I think everyone can tell why it didn't sell very well.
Yeah.
But they didn't have Andy from Reverb.com kind of plugging it for them.
Exactly, yeah.
Who is one of the worst human beings on the planet. I had to watch a lot of amp and pedal demonstration videos, and every time it was Andy just going, so I've got this 1979 Gibson, I'm running it into this stomp box here, and I'm just gonna roll back the gain. It's like whenever I watch one of those pedal videos, I'm just like, just fucking turn it up.
Dude, it's like ASMR though.
I just want to see it at full whack. Like, why do you have to have like a pleasing crunch? Like, I want to see that thing maxed out.
You look down at the dial, the knobs, and they are literally crowns of a penis each time. It's just changed them, just like tickling them up.
So in around so the production originally began in Japan, but in about 1986, the production moved from Japan to Taiwan.
Yeah.
In which it did use different components from the Japanese version to the Taiwan version, and a lot of people will contest that this in some way lessened the quality of the pedal.
Right.
But to be honest, I can't really tell a difference.
Really?
Having listened to back-to-back demonstrations of both of the pedals, it's difficult to tell your from your
Yeah.
So
Jesus, your search history must be so boring.
I just don't want the police coming around. So it eventually was discontinued in 1991, which was interesting because that was exactly around the time that the pedal kind of almost found its audience, because this was the year that Entombed's Left Hand Path was released.
For sure.
And that was the album that really
it was the turning point, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even though people have been using it before then, within that genre as well, so you had like Nihilist using it and Carnage using it, but it was really Left Hand Path that kind of almost didn't just get the sound of the pedal, but got the sound of the genre. And that's the thing, is I think that it has to be said, there's a difference between Swedish death metal and Swedish death metal.
What, the two different areas that...
Yeah, so there is death metal from Sweden.
Yeah.
And then there is
Swedish
death
metal.
Metal. Yeah. And I think that this, even though you have products such as Orange, which are kind of synonymous with the doom genre, I think this might be the only piece of equipment in which it's an absolute necessity to have it in order to play the genre of music that you want to play. It did create its own genre in and of itself.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the pedal itself, but the players utilising the pedal, and Sunlight Studios in Sweden incorporating the pedal into the sound of the music. It actually became almost like an extended band member.
Yeah.
But what I found quite interesting, what kept on being a bit of a sticking point to me in terms of its history, before we even got into Swedish death metal and the evolution of that scene, I was thinking about why they made it, other than to replicate a sound prior to it. It was, or another piece of equipment. I was thinking, well, like, why are they trying to cash in on the zeitgeist at the time? Like, heavy metal as a consumer's product. So metal had already established itself by 1983. But I was just trying to think, like, when did the production of the pedal start? Did it start... I know it was released in 1983, but did it come out did they start working on it in 1982, 1981? Did they have replicas of it? Did they have prototypes or anything like that? And then they ended up with this one. So I just started thinking about like what was going on around 1982 and 1983 that encouraged them, acted as a catalyst for them to make a heavy metal pedal.
Yeah.
A shit one. But and I was just thinking, like, what sound would have come out? Because the HM-2 is so
Distinctive.
heavy and distorted and fuzzy. I was thinking, what could have come out that would have inspired that sound?
Yeah.
And there's not much. So, like, Black Sabbath released Born Again in 1983. That's probably one of the heaviest records that would have come out at the time. Girls' School, Merciful Fate, Melissa.
Yeah.
Came out in 1983. Motorhead, Another Perfect Day.
I would probably say something along the lines of Motorhead.
But then you've got Show No Mercy and Kill 'Em All as well, 1983. They're sort of the blueprint to go off of for a pedal, I guess.
In terms of the actual DNA of Swedish death metal, I
Yeah.
think that there is a definitive line from Motorhead into that.
100%. And then, other than that, I mean, Mustaine was fucking hung out to dry. Got all the coke and alcohol sweats.
He was just
going on.
he was just trying to look after that dog that got kicked. If anything, he's he's the John Wick of metal.
I don't really get that reference other than Keanu Reeves.
Have you not watched John Wick?
It's not my thing, is it?
It's really good.
It's not
It's
my thing,
really
is it?
good. Do you not like martial arts films?
No, I do. Yeah, I really like
Yeah,
martial arts.
it's like up to 11 stupid. It is. Yeah, it's great, and it's all about a guy who gets his dog killed. So,
And I'm
just have
probably
to-
I'm one of the minority that actually can tolerate Keanu Reeves' bad acting.
he's pretty good in the film.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's never good in anything. He's good in My Own Private Idaho, but that's because he is so fucking wooden.
Point Break.
He's not good in Point Break. He's good in Speed. He's good in Speed.
Yeah.
But that's only
And
because he has
Speed
to go.
2.
Yeah. And I was thinking about 1982 as well. So Venom released Black Metal in 1982. Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, Man of War, Battle Hymns. So they're all relative in the justification of the pedal's existence and the reason why they would have made it. I think that's quite important as well. Like, people talk a lot about what the pedal became, but no one really talks about why they needed to make it in the first place, other than to cash in on other distortion pedals and heads at the time. But there must have been something about the cultural impact of the music that was coming out for them to be like, we need to cash in on this and like release a heavy metal pedal.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't even seem like, because it, as we mentioned, it didn't really kick in until after the pedal was discontinued. So it's discontinued in 1991 and replaced by the HM-3 the same year, I think. Which, if anything, if the HM-2 is a bad good pedal, the HM-3 is a bad pedal. Like, no one likes the HM-3.
Yeah.
But it's not just been used in metal. So it has been utilized outside of the genre.
Yeah.
To some quite interesting extents, one of which is the guitarist for Pink Floyd, David Gilmour. And following that, there's even bands such as My Bloody Valentine who have utilized the pedal.
But they use it as a boost, don't they, more than the actual sound itself.
Yeah, so I mean, quite a lot of people do use the pedal because it has a very distinctive EQ section that they kind of use it as a filter and as a kind of like a preamp before the actual distortion that they're going to use. So I've got one right here. I don't know. Right, I'm good.
Dead air, fucking dead air.
So there you go. You're looking at it now. Look at it in all its brilliance.
It's pretty ugly, isn't it?
It is.
It's iconic.
It's 5 years older than we are.
Really?
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, when I see like guitars on eBay that are like 1969, I'm like, holy shit, that's 21 years older than I am.
This one's had a fair bit of stomping on it.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to find one that doesn't have quite a large amount of the paint chipped off.
So it's enclosed in a black case. It has 4 knobs. It's got the level, which controls the output volume of the effect. It's got these colour knobs.
It's a really odd thing
Yeah.
to call the EQ section on a pedal.
Yeah. So you've got colour mix L, which controls the amount of low frequencies in the output signal. You've got colour mix H, which controls the amount of high frequencies in the output signal. You've got distortion, which, surprisingly enough, attempts to control the amount of distortion. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, isn't it? The distortion knob. So, straight, like, in a way, this knob doesn't work.
No, not between, what is it supposed to be, like 10 o'clock?
3 and 8.
Is it 3 and 8?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, so
It's debatable.
this is a pedal of extremes.
Yeah.
Extreme metal. Thank you.
It's like going from a perfectly fine, working, usable knob straight to knob rot.
But yeah, essentially, it's pretty much useless beyond the what did we say it was? 3 o'clock.
Yeah, just after 8.
Yeah. So just after 8, it's pretty much useless, and you keep diming it, you keep turning it up, and then it doesn't change the sound whatsoever. And you have to wonder, because we were talking about prototypes, what jammy fucking git boss managed to get that past like the quality? Like who didn't turn around and just went, "This doesn't work, mate. You've got to start again."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
in fact, you're almost buying a pedal that doesn't do what it says it's going to do.
It's like the only thing I can compare it to nowadays is how games are released by these huge conglomerate companies that are full of bugs. And then you've got patch teams afterwards to just work on making sure that it's like functioning properly, and they iron it out after it's been distributed to the public. But they didn't have it at the time.
But no one was working on this after it came out. If anything, people had to work with this to try and get a good sound. And interestingly enough, there is only one sound for this pedal, although David Gilmour and Belinda Butcher would say differently.
Yeah.
And that sound is everything maxed fully.
I actually don't know what it sounds like with the dials turned like further to the left.
It sounds like a wet blanket. It sounds like it was designed just to do this. Really, it should just have a level, and that's it.
Right.
Like you just have one knob that you just turn up, and it's just based on how loud you want it. So the distortion knob has pretty much no activity whatsoever. However, one thing that, and I know that a lot of producers that I've read have said that the most distinctive part of the pedal is not actually the distortion clipping, it's actually to do with the EQ section, which is...
So we're all doing it wrong.
Yeah.
After all these years.
Which, well, I know that a lot of bands ended up, because I think originally to get that kind of entombed sound, they were actually dialing back the distortion slightly and running it in front of a DS1 distortion pedal, which I know that a lot of bands have been doing recently, is they've just been using the EQ section of the pedal and running it into a more preferred distortion, just to give it that kind of colour.
That's cheating though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. If you're going to do it, just
do it properly.
Do it. Yeah.
I don't want to see any other pedals on a board other than 3 HM2s.
We have, in one of my old bands, we did manage to run 4 HM2s into each other, and it was just a fucking mess.
Really?
Like, yeah. I mean, I can't even... It's kind of like one of those Lovecraft things where you can't even begin to describe it. Words don't exist. But yeah, so the EQ has around about like 20 plus or minus decibels of cut and boost. And one person who really enjoys this sound and has used it quite a lot in their time is Kurt Ballou of Converge. So I believe that the EQs kind of sit around about 88 hertz to 1 kilohertz, which means absolutely nothing to the majority of people listening to this. But essentially what that has is having such a narrow kind of width of frequencies is it allows the bass and the drums to kind of fit around the sound. So whilst it might sound awful and harsh by itself, once mixed in the context of a larger band, it's actually almost fills in all these spaces that wouldn't have been filled by the rhythm section. There's absolutely no nuance to this pedal. It is just a case of just dialing it to the max and just letting it go.
Yeah, I mean that's the. That's the thing. Like it's a total mess of a pedal. Like technically, it's a mess.
Yeah, it sounds like a mess.
Its usage is so limited. It's probably one of the most limiting pedals that's ever come into creation and distribution.
Yeah,
and this is, I think, the reason why we're talking about it. It has generated so much music, literally from its sound alone. It's like a concept. If anything, it's like a concept pedal. Like imagine that if bands had like we're going to release.
It's not about
the
sound; it's about the idea.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got to think of a concept album. Let's hit the HM-2. We could say that this pedal is the fundamental reason as to why Swedish death metal exists, and it has its own USP. Would you agree with that?
I think because we mentioned previously that it almost created the genre.
Yeah.
So the subgenre of a subgenre of a genre. And I think that is almost to do with the limitations of the pedal forces guitarists to play in a completely different way. So at the time you kind of had two divisions in the Swedish death metal scene, that being the Gothenburg scene and the Stockholm scene. So you had bands in Gothenburg such as like At the Gates, Dark Tranquillity and In Flames, who, if they were to be given their own title, I guess it'd kind of be called melodic death metal. Whereas you have the Stockholm scene, which was like Carnage, Nihilist, Entombed,
Morbid,
Dismember, who created. It wasn't called Stockholm death metal. It was called Swedish death metal.
Yeah.
So there is a difference between the death metal from Sweden and Swedish death metal. Whilst the Gothenburg scene kind of opted for a more almost kind of technical, kind of eloquent style, the Stockholm scene kind of went the path closer to kind of hardcore punk, and as we mentioned previously, kind of Motorhead, that's kind of characterized by this fast, debeated rhythms.
So Thomas Skogsberg, the producer and engineer at Sunlight Studios, he was the guy that basically utilized the pedal to the band's sort of creative flavor, and he was able to mix it well enough for it to sort of justify being a heavy sound, I guess, so to speak. But what I don't know is it Gothenburg and Stockholm? Do they all converge at Sunlight Studios, and then it's about the differentiation? Because I think he's more Stockholm based, isn't he? Yeah.
So he was working with, because he recorded Entombed's, like all of kind of Entombed's iconic records. I know that before he was using that pedal, Nihilist, as early as Only Shreds Remain, their first EP, you can hear that HM-2 sound on it. It's probably not as thick and as dense as it is when it kind of got to Left Hand Path era.
Yeah.
But he certainly took a liking to this pedal and kind of understood that it really created this identity for this genre of music. Quite a lot of the bands at the time, they were all very young. and they didn't have particularly great equipment. So I know that quite a lot of the bands were using solid state amps. If you speak to anyone who's an amp enthusiast, they will say that solid state amps are the absolute devil, and you want to be moving towards things like valve amps or at least valve state amps. But a lot of these bands were young; they didn't have a lot of money, so they were using these valve state amps, which were quite cheap guitars. And I think, if anything, this pedal was a bit of a blessing because it does absolutely cover everything. Like, no one's sitting listening to a Swedish death metal going, are they using new strings on that? The strings sound a bit dead, because you just can't tell anything. It's worth mentioning that this pedal was used on the Skogsberg recording of Soulside Journey by Dark Throne. And I actually ended up listening to that record because I ended up having to listen to a lot of HM-2 bass bands. And to be honest, I don't think I want to listen to them for a long while after this.
You're missing the clarity, aren't you?
Yeah. And Soulside Journey, I think, is actually a really stunning piece of work in terms of death metal.
It's amazing. I think it's totally underappreciated.
If they were to release another record that sounded like that, I would be fully on board.
Well, we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up soon.
All right, Freddie foreshadowing.
Yeah. Not many people, I mean, Thomas Skogsberg himself, whenever people try to interrogate him as to like why he started using the pedal in the first place and why he insisted on using the pedal in so many records that came into the studio that needed to be recorded, he's not cagey, he just doesn't have that much to say about it. He's a man with very few words. I think he's basically just shrugging, saying, I don't know, it was there, I just wanted to use it. Whereas now people actively seek that buzzsaw chainsaw sound, like the Thomas Skogsberg Sunlight Studio sound. So I think he's modest about it. I don't think he knows. I think he's probably very aware.
Recognises the impact that it had.
But he doesn't care. Maybe it's just like
it was just
a pedal.
Thing that was done.
So I was able to find one thing that he said about it, and he said, I discovered the HM-2 in the late 80s. I always liked the mid-range. It suited me perfectly.
He's a man of few words.
He's
very concise.
Very direct.
Yeah. So towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, the pedal was always there. There was always going to be bands that were using it, but it was slightly dropped in popularity and has really come back within the last, I'd probably say about 10 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. It didn't just get used for Swedish death metal. I mean, all the bands that were using it were heavy bands to begin with, so you had bands in the grindcore and crust punk scene. But I don't think for people who are fans of that music that they are familiar with the history of the pedal, so it didn't really become synonymous with those genres of music. Eventually, though, however, it kind of, almost like poetry, it rhymes. It came back to the fact that it almost found a new home with Kurt Ballou, who is the guitarist of Converge and the producer at God City Studios. So that's kind of like the new home. It's almost like the new Sunlight Studios. He's used the pedal to quite a large extent with bands such as Nails, Black Breath, Trap Them. I believe Trap Them, he was actually introduced to the pedal by the guitarist from
The thing is, though, with all of these new bands, just before we go into a bit more, are they using HM2s or are they using clones?
So I know that because it wasn't until after these bands came out, that the kind of resurgent bands came out, that people started creating these clones. Because the problem is that there was only a finite amount of HM2 pedals out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I got mine off eBay, and it's quite, they can be quite difficult to find. And one of the reasons for that is the fact that quite a lot of the members of the old Swedish death metal scene each have double-digit figures of these pedals just stored up, like these weird like De Beers diamond motherfuckers who are just trying to, withhold the stock just to make sure that the prices go up.
Yeah. I do think one of the other contributors to the resurgence of it, alongside Converge, is GC Green of Godflesh.
Yeah.
The bassist of Godflesh. I believe he used it as an HM2 as well.
Yeah. And his bass sound just sounds like buildings collapsing.
Absolutely. It's a battering.
It sounds like a blast furnace going off. The pedal came back to popularity with Nails, Black Breath, Trap Them, Harm's Way, who are more of a hardcore band than you would consider a metal band. Although
a lot of the crossover bands, right, have started using it.
Yeah, although they kind of moved into this kind of industrial sound, which also, comes from that kind of Godflesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, because there's not a huge amount of these pedals out there, people found out that they could actually profit from creating their own clones of these pedals. To mention a few, we have a BYOC, the Swede. Do you really want to call it the Swede? That sounds a bit like slightly
the div kid of the potato family.
So that's for around $70 to $90. There's one caveat to that, is that you actually have to build the pedal yourself at home.
Right.
Which I've got no fucking time for that. On top of that, we've also got the Behringer HM-300. Behringer are one of those pedal companies and gear companies in general that kind of get shat on from a great height because they're incredibly cheap. However, a few of their pedals are just straight clones of very iconic pedals. So the HM-300 is a direct clone of the HM-2.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at pedals such as... So the pedal that I bought was around £150 when it came out. I think it was probably between like £80 to £90.
Can you believe how much he spent on that?
Yeah. They saw me coming. That's what PayPal credit's there for, man. So that pedal is for the reasonable price of $25.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So you've got people spending huge amounts of money on these weird boutique clones of this pedal that sounded not great to begin with. But there is one problem with that, is the fact that the enclosure is bright fluorescent pink.
What's wrong with that, man?
I've got no problem with that.
I've got no
like
problem
the
with that
colour
either.
pink. Yeah.
Hey, neither of us in this room have any problem with that.
The colour pink. On top of that, we got the Nine of Swords Funeral Party, which is an HM2 inspired circuit that just has two controls, which is a volume and a tone, which I think is great. Just keep it bare minimum, just one knob. You could have gone one further and just had the one knob, and that's £100. We got the Dunwich Amps Tyrant pedal.
Yeah.
Which is actually Nails' signature.
No
pedal.
knobs.
No knobs. Does it not have a knob?
No, it does have a knob.
Oh, okay. Right. We've got the Abominable Electronics Throne Torture, which goes for an eye-watering amount of $195, which claims to be the HM2, but better. We'd all like to do our own reviews, wouldn't we? And Patrick, who's the maker of those pedals, ensures that all his pedals go out with the knobs turned up to full.
Oh, that's
nice. Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So many of these pedals have kind of taken this design and tweaked them.
Yeah, a few more actually. The funniest ones that I've found. So Anarchy Audio released a version of the HM2, as did Lone Wolf Audio with its left-hand Ra'oth. Aside from its tribute name, it actually improves the original pedal by adding more settings options. God. Yeah, don't think that's an improvement. No. And then there's also, you can find the Enormous Door LHP Extreme Distortion, LHP actually standing for left-hand path.
Okay.
So there are pedals out there now that are inspired specifically by Entombed and specifically by left-hand path.
The problem with all of this is, and for my money, if you want that sound, I don't want a pedal that essentially changes the original sound of the HM-2. Like
Yeah.
people going like, we've changed this and we tweaked this. My idea is that it's a binary pedal. It does one thing. It's either on or it's off, and it's either full whack or it's nothing, and that is exactly what it does. I don't want to sit there kind of tailoring the tone.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your takeaway?
I'm not a pedal purist at all.
Yeah.
I have quite a minimal setup. I don't like fiddling around too much. I think with the HM2, everything, even though it sounds like garbage, it makes everything quite easy. Like, especially if you just use it for a boost.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I completely concur. Like, adding more settings to a pedal that is notorious for being bad and stripped back and not even working and functioning properly is a little bit backwards. Maybe it's a little bit like, what is the purpose and the intention of what you're trying to do with a pedal that was released faulty?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's weird.
I've realised that you've been making a few choice comments about this pedal.
What, that shit?
Do you actually like it?
I like it, but I would, for my playing style, I don't think I'd have that much use for it.
No.
I'd only use it as a boost.
Yeah.
Because I bloody love my boosts.
Yeah.
Because I just want to be louder than everyone else.
I think at this point, and given the fact that it did have its heyday and then it had its resurgence, I think it probably has gotten to the point where the market of bands that use this and utilize this sound, it's just become saturated.
I think it works really well in industrial music.
Yeah.
Actually. More so than, say, when bands like Harm's Way use it. To me, it does just sound a bit throwback, maybe a little bit cheap.
Yeah.
I hope the Harm's Way singer is listening to this, because he just has to look at me and I'll be pulverized.
He's going to twist your head off. He's going to make you do 20 push-ups and then twist your head off afterwards.
But hey, I'm not the only person that is skeptical or even completely against this pedal. A lot of people have criticised this pedal to the extent where they think it's just an abominable piece of trash. One user of the pedal, I am Q-Man, has said, this goes into the WTF are they thinking category. Okay. I mean, what do they expect this to sound like? A hyped up Marshall JCM 800? This pedal is so bad that I find myself thinking, why did I spend any time with this pedal, knowing full well ahead of my time that this pedal is not going to sound good at all? Back when trying out the guitar for the first time, it seems like a lot of beginners try out pedals like this. So I had a number of friends who had metal-type pedals, to which every single one of them sounded horrible. This pedal is no exception. Running my fork across the plate sounds about what you get without this pedal. It may even sound better. I know that Boss is tailoring to the metal market, but come on, this thing sounds like garbage.
I mean, it's not for you. Like, this is for a very select market, and it's not going to be for everyone.
I mean, this guy does say, look, I've tried all these other metal pedals, and they all sound bad. I mean, what type of music is he playing?
Yeah. But, it's one of those things where you just don't read the reviews, because, especially not if you're poor...
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, especially if you're not poor Boss. Like, they're never...
Poor
Boss, with their millions and millions of dollars.
Can't you use that in context of Burzum as well? just don't read the reviews.
Just don't read the YouTube
just
comments.
Don't read the liner notes.
To see this. So we're going to have a bit of a
demo?
A bit of a demo.
Yeah, let's do it.
An Exint Ferris first.
Yeah, do it.
I've got to, So I'm going to be running my my Gibson Les Paul.
Yeah, your guitar's around the wrong way, mate.
No, it's the correct way. It's the left-hand way, if you will.
Oh, he's left-handed, yeah.
Shut up. Oh, wait. Did you hear that?
No. I can't hear anything. Oh, whoa. Let's do this.
Okay. So I'm running my Gibson Les Paul into my Boss HM-2 pedal.
Which is
Directly
directly
into-
into your arse.
Directly into my amp profiler. This is not going to sound great.
Are you going to
but
play
we're gonna
Blowing
give
in
it
the
a
Wind?
go. Yeah, so should we give this a go?
Give it a go, man.
Okay, so here's my clean tone.
What tuning are you in?
So I am in the correct tuning. I am. The majority of those old school bands played in B standard, which is generally a 7-string kind of tuning. However, I have dropped it by another full tone on the lowest string to give me a kind of a D, drop D tuning.
Okay.
So let's give this a go. So there's the clean. And by the way, this thing also kicks back a whole lot of noise and a whole lot of feedback.
Yeah.
So here we go.
I would
Lovely.
clap, but
Sounded awful, didn't it?
I mean, it sounds great. Actually, I do think it sounds great.
Yeah, and you can't. I had this conversation with a guy that I was in a band with who used the HM2, and we were just saying it's so difficult to actually write death metal kind of atonal music without some kind of heavy distortion, because when you play it without it, it just sounds like clown music.
Yeah.
Just sounds like...
If you sent me that, I really like that. There's something really.
You play it with the. That was played terribly.
I really like it actually. The clean. Like, I think it sounds quite ominous.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well done.
We'll do that more often.
Yeah, but if
Please don't.
you sent me that riff, and you said I've written this, I just want you to learn it, but you sent me going through that fucking pedal, I would just send it back to you. Fucking twat.
With a picture of a middle finger.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So that's the HM2.
Yeah, go out to your nearest department
eBay.
store now and pick one
Your
up.
nearest cash converters.
Yeah, exactly. Your nearest CEX. Yeah, so that's the pedal. Well
Cool.
done. Thank you very much.
It's all good. Another episode of X and Ferris in the bag.
That's it.
After a long break.
The boys from below are back.
Cool. So where can everyone find us, Tom?
They can find us. I've actually completely forgotten. So SoundCloud are currently our hosts. The operative word there being currently. They're our hosts right now. They distribute us to a number of platforms, one in particular being iTunes. So you can find us at X Ferris. I think we've actually changed
the
now.
name.
So
you
it's X
smartly told me
Yeah.
to put heavy metal
Yeah.
in the
That's our SEO coming out there.
Yeah.
So our name is X and Ferris, a heavy metal podcast. So you'll be able to find us on iTunes and you'll be able to find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on Instagram, X and Ferris podcast. You can find us on Facebook, X and Ferris podcast. what I would love is if anyone actually does listen to this, please subscribe. Please, if you have a moment, just write a review, even if it's a bad review.
Yeah, give us. Well, it has to be a 5-star review. Otherwise, I'm coming for you.
It doesn't have to be 5 stars. Just anything. I just like seeing people. The fact that they've said anything would be great. You can also contact us if you want us to talk about something. If you want to tell us how bad we're doing, just
what you've been listening to.
Yeah, you can either direct message us through any of the socials, or you can actually contact us through our email, which is xandferrispodcast@gmail.com.
That's the one.
Yeah, we would really, really love to hear from people.
Yeah, send us your demos.
We will talk
We'll
about
trash
you.
it.
Yeah, we will talk about you. Like, if you have any demos or anything like that, we will listen to it, and we will give you a very honest critique.
Stern
if
but
that's
fair.
what you'd like.
Cool.
So, yeah,
So,
we're done.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
I am trying to think of some
Godspeed?
kind of slogan that we can have at the end of this.
Satan speed.
That'll do.